Unfortunately, I don't have a costume. I was thinking about doing a costume. I don't think we have enough of a following to warrant a costume yet. If there's at least 10 people ready to watch this thing next year, I'll wear something. But yeah, I think we're just going to be watching stuff today. I'm particularly interested in watching the entire lore of Silksong, which is going to be my, like, this is going to be the last thing we do. And we've watched this guy before, and yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. He actually made a comment on our VOD, maybe, thanking us for the kind words. So doubly like him. And yeah, we've been waiting for this. This is kind of interesting stuff. And we just played the game, and I really like the game. So, but we've got a bunch of other fun stuff. Also, if anyone comes in here, just feel free to recommend anything. We could talk about anything. Yo, Darmadon, what's good? Good morning. We are good today. Is today Halloween for you, or is that already passed? Regardless, happy Halloween. I think we're just straight chilling tonight. Already passed. Nice. Well, happy November. Just did 2 posters. Nice. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Do you usually do that post or pre posters? Or both? All right. Here we go. All around nice. Very nice. All right, here we go. The science of mental toughness. Now, I'll note that one of the things I noticed when I got into meditation, I realized that it was easier to withstand pain in the gym. So, like, I just realized, like, oh, I could hold a plank longer than I regularly would have, because I'm familiar with this state. So I'm curious if that's going to be something similar to what's going to be discussed in this video. Yes, equanimity. Yeah, equanimity, is that a mental calmness? Right. Yep. An even mind, especially under stress or in difficult situations. Yeah. So if that's not a good enough advertisement for meditation, I don't know what is, but I think this guy's gonna give a good one.
This is not a fitness video. This is actually a video about your brain and the invisible limits we all cage ourselves with. The truth is this: there are no real limits. I've been planking 15 to 30 minutes straight for the past 10 years every single day. That's almost 1,000 hours total. 10 years ago, I could barely hold a single minute. Since then, sure, my abs have gotten stronger, but what's changed the most is actually my mind. Not just in some woo-woo, I'm more tough now kind of way. I'm talking real neurobiological changes in my brain that give me increased mental stamina, increased energy, and overall improved neuroplasticity.
This all checks out with what we usually
why
talk
you should
about.
start this years ago, how to make it easy, and the neuroscience behind it all. Oh, and yeah, that's right. I'm going to be doing this entire video in the plank position. First of all, why the plank? It's without a doubt one of the best exercises you could do. What else hits almost every muscle you own, improves your spine health, your posture, and acts as a force multiplier for everything else like balance, running, and lifting. There's minimal risk for injury, and it's infinitely scalable with longer holds and increased weight. But despite all that, the real reason why I love the plank is because it's actually not a physical exercise at all. It's 90% a mental one. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's $1 million growth factor that floods your brain when you plank. You want to cure almost every neurodegenerative disease out there? Figure out how to turn this into a pill, and you'll win the Nobel Prize. BDNF increases the lifespan of your brain cells, promotes neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, in the hippocampus, the area critical for memory and learning, and increases synaptic plasticity.
All right. One thing to point out here is I don't think he's got a script. Did he memorize this entire thing while doing the plank? That's incredible. I've been doing the reverse, like using exercise for better meditation. Nice. Yeah, I mean, yoga can be the same way, especially with yin. I mean, granted, like, you know, the more fast paced yogas, like, those are pretty tough, but your mind's kind of always focusing on the pose, or it's kind of, you're focusing on what you're, you know, what you're trying to do here, or you know, when you start a practice or a session with a like a goal or something, you know, people do that as well. um with yin, I mean, I guess it's the same thing, but you have to withstand just holding and feeling pain. uh Pranayama. I'm sorry, I know I've learned these. Breath control, right, just focusing on making sure that the breath is in line. And yeah, yeah, a lot of benefits all there. I do miss the yoga days. I gotta get back into that stuff.
This means your brain cells can talk to each other and form connections much more easily. This ultimately leads to stronger, more flexible brain networks overall, which means you learn faster, face stress better, and become less anxious and depressed overall. Don't just take my word for it. I'm just a random doctor from Harvard. Just look at all the research that's held.
What?
And so, in this moment, as I hold the plank, I'm
Crazy
teeming with
thing to
all this
just
brain
drop.
fertilizer, I have an entire mental routine I run through. In this routine, I focus all this extra brain power to specifically grow the most important meta skills of life: agency,
I love how he just kept going there.
mental tough to specifically grow the most important meta skills of life: agency, mental toughness, and emotional resilience. Let me explain how. For decades, no one thought running a 4-minute mile was possible. Doctors,
Yeah.
coaches, scientists, they all claimed the human body couldn't handle this terrain. That is, until 1954, when a medical student named Roger Bannister, who trained during lunch breaks between hospital shifts, casually broke the barrier at a small race in Oxford. And just like that, within a year, multiple people were able to crush 4 minutes when in the entire previous history of mankind, not a single person could do it before. What happened? Did humans suddenly evolve in 1954? No, what changed was just belief, the realization that it was possible. That's agency, the belief that as long as something doesn't break the laws of physics, it's possible, not just in general, but for you specifically. That's why the first few minutes of my plank is reserved for training agency. I think to myself, for whatever reason, most people put limits on themselves, but not I. Most people live inside their tiny comfort zones, spend their entire lives suffocating in this bubble, but not me. I'm not dying in this godforsaken bubble. We all have variations of the 4-minute mile for ourselves. Unfortunately, there's no random medical student coming to save us. It's up to you. That's why the plank is essential. I tell myself, if I can handle the plank, the most painful exercise to ever exist, I can handle anything. I repeat this mantra in my head. As long as it doesn't defy the laws of physics, I can make it happen. If they can put a man on the moon and build a giant metal plane that floats in the sky, the least I can do is hold my fat ass a few inches above the ground. But there's a problem, right? It's the same problem with most workouts. It's hard to be consistent, especially for an exercise that is as painful as this one. That's where I was 10 years ago, trying to figure it out. Luckily, I stumbled upon the solution. Scientists have actually been studying this same problem for the past 30 years. They've studied burn victims, chronic pain patients, even people undergoing major life-altering surgeries. How do you help someone effectively deal with never-ending, unrelenting pain? Distraction. And just any distraction. Distractions that engage your brain. Distractions that engage your senses. Distractions that engage your very emotions. That's why the very best form of distraction is actually a video game. In this study, subjects were asked to put their hands in freezing ice water.
Wow.
Those that were playing a video game while doing so had significantly higher pain tolerance, a lower perception of pain, significantly less anxiety, and a much more willingness to repeat the same painful task. Sounds awesome, right? But I took it one step further. I call it Pavlov's 2 rules. 1. The game you choose must be incredibly addicting. And 2. The game can only be played in the plank position. When you plank, BDNF is circulating like crazy. And so your brain becomes like Play-Doh. Its neurons ready to be molded and shaped to your heart's content.
Oh, never mind. He's scrolling.
Plasticity. Whatever you now do in this state, whatever you now learn is going to be 10 times easier, 10 times more sticky, 10 times more memorable. That's why it's in this exact state that you want.
Why is he scrolling so much? I guess the words need to be large enough for him to be able to see this pretty clearly.
Crazy. 2. Numb the pain of the plank. And 3. Specifically associate the act of planking with these highly active reward centers. Because you never play unless you're doing a plank. Your brain begins to think of the plank not as a bad thing, but as a good thing, as the only key it has to unlock the reward it so desperately wants. In other words, By following Pavlov's 2 rules, you end up not only craving the plank, you become addicted to it. Is that not insane? To become addicted to the most painful exercise possible, all while minimizing the pain you feel during it. It's pure genius. But interestingly enough, I took it yet one more step further. While I still reserve the last half of the plank to this method and play Clash Royale on my phone to keep Pavlov's 2 rules alive, I balance this with the strangest desire of them all. I want to actually feel the pain. It sounds crazy, but consider the goal here. It's not just to train my abs, it's to train my mind. But I end up distracting the mind. Sure, I successfully do the plank, but what was supposed to be a mental exercise turns purely into a physical one. That kills 90% of the benefit right there. You don't just want a jacked body, you want a jacked brain. Just like calluses form on your hands from repeated use, mental calluses form on your brain from repeated exposure to more difficult and painful tasks. Scientists call this exposure therapy or stress inoculation training. Studies show that gradually exposing yourself to the physical and psychological stress builds tolerance and desensitizes the brain. This reduces the fear response and significantly improves resilience overall. That's why the first half of the plank is actually done naked. No phone, no music, no distractions, no games. But it's not just bearing the pain and suffering in silence. I run through some very specific mental training exercises. Again, BDNF is powering all of this, so your brain is very receptive to what you do in this stain. First rule of the plank, no negativity whatsoever. Reframe everything with positive self-talk. I don't know if I can do this as a frame to I can do this.
So I'm curious how much of this he is pulling from, like, already developed, like, Eastern thought, or if he's pulling all of this from neuroscience, which is probably also pulled hypotheses from that.
I can do this is in refrain to I am doing this, because you literally are. Every second you hold is further evidence that you are indeed doing it. Evidence you then store away in what David Goggins calls his mental cookie jar. When life gets especially tough, you reach into that cookie jar and recall prior successes to fuel yourself in the moment, a technique called resilience priming. Each day's plank primes your resilience for the next. I'm doing this becomes, of course I can do this, because I've already done it before. My cookie jar is filled
Sounds like
with daily
Goggins stuff,
proof.
yep.
That's why the second rule of the plank is what I call the better than yesterday rule. Every time you plank, you always add a few seconds. If you planked 60 seconds yesterday, you then plank for 65 seconds today. You already know it's possible because you already
Adding
did it
5
yesterday.
seconds
What's
per
a few
day?
seconds about rounding error.
Yo,
Each
Onion
day's
Helmet.
plank is just another cookie.
This guy's been planking now for 8 minutes while also talking through the video. I thought he might have been memorizing, but it looks like he's scrolling through a script.
Is to power your ability to swallow a slightly bigger cookie tomorrow. This is how you eat an elephant, one slightly bigger bite at a time. I have an entire system that I keep track of this. With one button on the multi-timer app, everything is set. It beeps let me know when to switch from the naked plank to the reward plank, remembers how much I've done each day, and tracks how much I planked in my entire lifetime. I then swipe to another board for studying, which keeps track of my Pomodoros and total studying time. For YouTube, I switch to a third board. What you track is what you improve, right? I then sync everything to a Notion file that updates in real time, so your
Is this an
accountability
ad?
can see how awesome you're getting done everything with. With the Pro version, you can make as many custom boards as you want, including an entire habit tracker right on your phone at the end of the
I used to
month.
plank every day. What happened?
Export out all the data and graph out trends. This app has honestly changed how I approach my day. True gamification at a touch of a button. Looking at all the most influential papers in the science of mental toughness, there's a pretty common thread. Number 1, getting more mentally tough is indeed possible. Number 2, the best way to improve mental toughness is to improve your psychological toolkit. We've already talked about reframing, positive self-talk, resilience priming, and goal setting, but I haven't yet mentioned the most important skill of them all, emotional resilience through mindfulness training. There's a lot of research on this. They all show consistently the same findings. Split a bunch of performance athletes into 2 groups. One group gets mindfulness training, while the second group does nothing special. After 5
I got about 50 seconds or so to 2.5 minutes, and then I was like, all right. Hypothesis type stuff. I'm a scientist. Very nice. But can you get it up to... I think he's going to go 15 seconds or 15 minutes for the whole video.
5 to 7 weeks, those in the mindfulness group were found to be much more mentally resilient, had higher endurance, and significantly improved cognitive and executive functions overall. This is another reason why the first half of my plank is naked. Train my autonomic nervous system to make it simple. It's sort of like the fight or flight response. Typically, when we feel pain, we enter this mode. Instead of the natural instinct...
Okay, so half of it, regardless of what time it is, and he can see half based on that little app that he's got. And then I guess for the other half, he switches to playing games. So I have to boot up Balatro again, and then switch over to Balatro, start a Balatro run while doing the plank. That would be pretty funny.
To run To stop, to get out of the painful situation we find ourselves in, we have to train ourselves instead to stay calm.
It's only
to relax,
900
to sit
seconds.
with the pain and realize this is actually okay. I'm going to be okay. The best way to do so is to actually embrace the pain and to be curious about it, how it actually feels. Scan my body from head to toe and make note of all the different muscles that are tensing. Which ones hurt the most? What kind of pain am I actually feeling? When you start to really get in tune with the pain, you realize there are actually two parts of this pain. There's the physical pain, and interestingly enough, the emotional component as well. When you really pay attention, you'll start to realize it's the emotional side of things that's actually the most painful of them all. Because the physical pain of the plank is temporary, and it merely stops the moment you stop planking. It never ceases to amaze me. The moment I stop, no matter how bad it was, the sudden flood of relief is almost euphoric. I realize, oh, actually, that wasn't so bad. I was really in no danger at all. But it's the emotional pain that lingers, that haunts you later. If you do take on this plank challenge, and you really should, it's going to be emotional pain that eventually makes you stop. If you do take on this challenge, it's probably emotional pain that's to blame too. Whew. It looks like laziness or lack of discipline, but deep down, it's something else entirely. Fear, anxiety, insecurity, and self-doubt. I deal with these voices in my head all the time. It tells me I'm not going to be able to keep this up. It tells me why start something if you're only just going to give up in the end. Do you really want to disappoint yourself again? No matter how hard you work, you're still going to fail, so why even bother, right? You start running, ruminating, a never-ending vortex of negative thought patterns. If you're doing it, if you are planking, before you know it, you've quit. It becomes almost impossible to start again, because who wants to confront all those emotional baggages again? This is what happens when you let the amygdala, the fear centers of your brain, run the show. Realize this extends way beyond planking. This poisonous thought process plagues us in almost everything we do, anything that takes relentless focus and effort over time. Whew. But when you train mindfulness, the thought patterns change completely. You become more aware. You realize it's just a voice in your head. Emotions are just emotions too. They don't have real power. They come and go just like physical pain does, except the faucet for emotional pain. Something you have to learn to shut off for yourself. That's why mindfulness during these moments of toughness is extremely important, to prevent yourself from getting lost in your own thoughts, to stay present to what's actually going on. In the end, physical pain is just physical pain. There's no reason to add a layer of emotional pain on top of this too. Even more amazingly, when you mindfully pay attention, when you truly embrace the physical side of pain and limit the emotional sting of it all, it doesn't even feel that bad anymore. This is the basis of cognitive behavioral training. You get to self-edit your thoughts, and question your self-limiting beliefs in real time, all to get closer to the bare naked truth. Just simply this. This physical pain isn't going to kill me. In fact, it's not even a bad thing at all. Physical pain I get to experience is actually a privilege. I should be enjoying this pain, thanking this pain. Because of pain like this, that your abs get to change. But more excitingly, it's why your brain gets to change. You are becoming part of the 1% of people on this planet, doing awesome things, unbelievable things, superhuman things. Every second you live in this position is yet another ounce of proof that you belong in this club of extraordinary people. And the reward you get to reap from it will simply take your life to the next level, guaranteed. So take some deep breaths, calm down, stay present in the moment, enjoy every freaking second of this. You got this. Whew. Wow. If you're still here with me now, sign up for the best self-development community known to man. You get to do weekly challenges just like this with me, a bunch of other people who win prizes
Very nice.
and change your life at the same time. I'll see you there.
All right, we got to see what's going on here. This evidence-based routine demonstrated via extended plank holds. Details of okay, so incorporating game-based rewards and mindfulness. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, it's first half, he calls it naked. This is mindfulness. Second half, play the game. Weird flex, but okay. 14 minutes only. True. 14:36. I mean, I'm sure he just wanted to go as long as that script took him. But yeah, multi-timer app, waitlist for level 100. Is this his self-help community? And I'm guessing this is all... Oh, look at this. This is stuff that we're into. Learning how to learn. Accomplishing anything you set your mind on. How to cure any addiction. How to make the grind actually fun. How to stay calm under pressure. Ooh. Ooh. Do we want to steal this for part 2? I don't even know when this would make sense. Yeah, would it be do we want to add something like that in here? Because certain goals require you to act in the moment, right? Like they require you to just do something right now, you know? And perhaps you're not prepared, but you still have to do it. And that's kind of something we should talk about. How to stay calm under pressure. Where do we want to put this? I'll just make a little category here saying uncategorized, and then let's just steal that. How to strengthen your mind to face basically anything. That's what we already have, and a million other skills. Just look at the left panel. Conquer burnout. Should we go in? Should we be a double agent here and go in just to get the goods? I'm gonna plank for 15 minutes right now. Oh my gosh, anyone want to join? Well, I can't while we stream, but I do kind of want to start this. I kind of want to, maybe I'll do 60 seconds and then add the game in. And then just go build up like he did. Maybe 5 seconds every single time. I don't know if that would, man, that's going to rise really quickly. Maybe add 2 seconds every single time. Because I think adding 1 second is way too slow. Yeah, let me think about this. If you add 2 seconds every day, then you're adding a minute every month-ish, which is not bad. That seems good. 2 seconds a day. Start with, we should start at 0. No, I think I could do, let's just start at, we should start at 60. There's no reason why not to start at 60. All right. So this we should have in there, but I'm just going to add it here. How to make the grind actually fun. Not anymore. Right. That's my intention. Okay. I might just get in on this just so that we learn. Conquer burnout, distraction, procrastination. Oh yeah, these are all things we do have to how to counter burnout, distraction, procrastination. This is all going to be parts of the internal obstacles here, but I just want to write these down. Ego, imposter syndrome, just so that we get a good comprehensive list going. Okay, maybe not right now. The stream needs me. Absolutely. The problem, can't you just get this on your phone and plank while you're watching? And you could type while you're watching, you know, it's aren't the abdominal muscles, it's your arms and legs supporting your body weight. It's kind of like a pull-up. Yeah, it seemed like, you know, he started shifting from side to side. I guess you could say that maybe he was doing those types of movements just to lift his abs up and take stuff off of them. But I imagine he was doing that because his triceps were starting to feel it. And then also he was talking about how his legs were cramping up. So, but man, that's got to be so good for you, getting that type of core support. Plus you get the mindfulness in there. Double whammy. All right, build resilience, mental toughness, grit, discipline, habits. Do we have build discipline? Emotional intelligence we have in there. Develop charisma. We do have kind of charisma in there. But I'm just gonna write these down just so we... Charisma, connection, self-esteem. This is kind of all part of it. Communication skills we want. I think that's already accounted for, but let's just write it down. Time management skills. That's something I didn't consider. Wealth management skills is a little out of scope, I think. Wealth management skills. These are things that we might want to put into actually part 3. Not communication skills. That could be part 2. Unless we start moving things like that to part 3. But time management skills, I think we want part 3. We could even go into wealth management, but that's very odd. Maybe. Increased health span. We don't really care about increased health span. We care about increased quality of life for longer, right? So usually health span stuff kind of correlates with like per day quality of life. But we could extend quality of life. What do we have? Gain, life system, purpose, life clarity, accountability, never-ending support. Yeah, we got to get in on this. We got to steal all the deets. Or collab, you know, it doesn't have to be negative sounding. All right, so how to learn anything so fast feels illegal. Okay, so he's going to cover these on the channel already. So we need to get in on this. This is good stuff. We need to stay tuned with this channel. I don't know what this is about. Is there a no? It's kind of like a don't speak about being an athlete until you planked in the cold on the floor. I don't know if you're Wim Hof or David Goggins right now. Perhaps both of them together. All right, if this is unrelated to anything that we usually talk about, then we're going to just cut it.
Bring this up, but a couple of times out here on the internet, I have seen people say something like, John Green only cares about tuberculosis. Obviously, this is a little bit silly, but it gets under my skin. And so it's something I spent a fair amount of time.
They did something charitable. Yeah. Which I think is good, but I don't think it's relevant right now. Oh, but this is relevant. I don't know if you all remember this channel, but Gacked is a new favorite channel here. You can't escape growing up. So I think he just makes a song. I think they make a song for each video, and then it's just a video of cats playing. So is this like at night, or is this a... They're just taking pictures as well. Okay. I think that was a good amount. But there's another. Music and video made by me. Very nice. Now this is that wholesome content. I'm curious what like the daily routine is. Like, is it always in the morning, go out with the cats, film them, and then throughout the day make the video? Or I'm sorry, make the music? Because we're dealing with one almost, you know what? No, it's like one or two a week. Oh my gosh, the day you wish would never end. This is just the best. All right, onward. This psychological trick will change how you write forever. All right, this is what we need. We're early on in the writing saga.
Looks so good that we stay up all night.
Everyone's an atheist until the plank be hidden. Those glutes, pray up, for real, for real. That's what this chat's gonna become. It's just gonna be everyone talking in emojis. And I might be here for it. All right, what do we got?
Why are some books so good that we stay up all night reading, while others are so boring that they put us to sleep? The difference comes down.
Uh-oh, this is going to be about fiction. We don't do fiction here.
To a psychological principle known as the Zeigarnik effect. And today I'm going to reveal how to leverage the power of this psychological phenomenon to write page-turning stories that readers simply can't put down. First, what is the Zeigarnik?
I always get recommended. I gain no value from them. Yeah, it is tough. Like a lot of these types of videos can usually be summed up really quickly. Plant Chekhov's guns. Oh, revise your chapter endings. Build up to an event. So have we got it all? Oh, I saw so if you're ready to get feedback that takes your story to the next level, let's work together. How funny would it be if I put the document in here? Like if I just sent. Oh man. I don't trust pretty girls. They break your heart. Oh. I just get Evernote and Notion, bro. By the way, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Dom, stay strong, King. All right, I think we do have to move along. I don't think we're going to be able to gain anything for our book. Slash whatever this thing is. The philosophy tier list. Here we go.
Philosophy. Something that helps provide an ethical framework for our lives, helps us ask important questions about life and death, and also helps us look for meaning and purpose in life. Now, many people may think theology or religion is the same as philosophy, but it's not exactly the same, just similar. Let me explain. Philosophy looks for rational explanations and justifications for beliefs. Philosophy has its basis in reason. Theology deals with thinking about religious beliefs in a rational manner, but it presumes faith. And also, I'm not going to bash or make fun of any of these philosophies.
I think philosophies assume faith as well, but perhaps we didn't figure that one out until the last 100 years. I'm not sure.
Just try and give an objective opinion on them, and I'll try my best to not have any sort of my opinion in it, but that's really hard to do. So if you guys disagree with me in the comments, make sure to comment that down below, just so I can get your guys' opinion on this. All right, now into the video. Also subscribe to the channel. It's the channel's goal to be at 250,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I think we can do it, so please subscribe.
Oh,
Thanks.
They made it.
Nihilism. Nihilism, a philosophy that is one of the more depressing on the list, but let's get into it. Nihilism, which is a philosophical stance which questions the fundamental meaning and value of existence. It suggests that life lacks inherent purpose or significance. This viewpoint challenges traditional beliefs, particularly regarding morality and the nature of reality. And there are a lot of different sides of the nihilism view, so starting off with moral nihilism, one facet of this philosophy which rejects the existence of objective moral truths. Instead, it proposes that concepts like good and evil are human constructs, rather than inherent principles of the universe. In essence, moral nihilists argue that there are no universal rules governing right and wrong, and ethical judgments are subjective or culturally determined.
Yeah, so not to go full Jordan Peterson, but like the tricky thing is, on one hand, you could point out that, because our ontology all comes from consciousness, that, each person's beliefs are pretty subjective, and that means that there's no like actual transcendent, absolute morality or meaning, etc. However, the reason that I think Jordan Peterson goes in this direction towards there being something is he points out that given the fact that everyone's ontology is coming from their own consciousness, and because consciousness itself shares let's just say behaviors between humans, like it's in our DNA, then now you could see how there might be some pattern of experience or pattern of meaning that could be transcendent among conscious humans. So perhaps morality isn't simply just cultural in some sense. It's also like any human brain will arrive at these types of moral frameworks. And granted, you can make sense of this through cross-cultural analysis. And yeah, you do see stuff like that. The question is just, what are those moral values that do tend to help out the group, but also which values tend to feel moral or not moral in human minds. And that's just like a tricky thing to, like, holding those two things at the same time is very tricky. So you could kind of argue for both, but still we're technically, like, obviously our document doesn't go anywhere near actually falling into nihilism, but we do point out that there isn't some absolute concrete morality, but believing and abiding by moral nihilism only works when you hold a monopoly on violence. Yikes. Anyone else is LARPing? Yeah. Or going to prison. Yeah, I guess the question is, what does it mean by abiding by? Like, must you do things that are bad in order to abide by this, or the moral nihilist when the judge pulls up?
Existential nihilism, another important aspect, delves into the ultimate meaning of human existence.
Well, okay, so I guess, should we get into the... So someone can be affected by some, like, cultural norms without realizing they're being affected by cultural norms, and they might even think that they're a moral nihilist, but they could be also right. Like, they might be right about the fact that morality isn't, some static transcendent thing. However, they might overlook how much their own, not just behavior, but their own perception and conscious experience is affected by deeply ingrained moral norms about just what is good and bad and what they ought to do. So yeah, even if someone tries to abide by it, like, their mind's not going to let them. So that on this channel, we're always going to talk about the contrast between your deliberate intentions and the drives that your mind puts on you, or the constraints. I've seen egoists just abide by regular secular Christian values. What's the point? What are they exactly rebelling against? What are egoists? They just believe that they have control over everything? Yeah, I mean, obviously we take the stance that there isn't, some transcendent, static morality in the sense that, something else is defining what's moral and not. We can find, we can make that nuanced take about the fact that human morality does seem to have some sort of equilibrium, but we also recognize that because it's not set in some concrete way, that people can get brought into directions that are outside of what we would normally consider to be like the equilibrium of moral norms. And so we can't act as if there is, like we ought to understand that morality is more complicated than simply there is just a objective right and wrong. Max Stirner, there are no morals. The state is fake. Values are fake. Yeah. Yeah, also just pointing out that like all meaning is fake. It gets you nowhere. You're still bound by it in a very fundamental way. But yeah, we're gonna have to deal with these issues hopefully carefully, and hopefully people ask questions that allow us to make it more precise. But yeah, I'm worried that we're gonna have to deal with stuff like that when, yeah, you know what? I guess part 3 is going to have to deal with morality in a way that implies these controversial takes. So we're going to have to deal with this all along the way while we're still doing practical stuff. Morality stops where the law begins. Morality stops where the law begins. Is that true? Is that roughly true?
Existence and the universe. It contends that life is devoid of intrinsic significance and any attempts to find meaning are ultimately futile. This perspective can make you...
So that second part of the question was not necessarily a outcome of the first part of that.
And the universe. Realism, another important aspect, delves into the ultimate meaning of human existence and the universe. It contends that life is devoid of intrinsic significance and any attempts to find meaning are ultimately futile. This perspective
so you can find meaning even if life doesn't have some concrete meaning in like a absolute sense. Practically, yes. Philosophically, no. Imagine, for example, a moral nihilist in North Korea. Good luck to him. Oh, right. Yeah, like there's something pragmatic about a moral nihilistic take. Like you have to understand what you're trying to do with making such a claim. I guess you don't have to actually understand it as the moral nihilist, but like we can try to consider what they're trying to do by proclaiming this type of thing.
You pretty depressed or sad because it's saying nothing really matters. If someone truly believes in this philosophy of nihilism, it could lead the person to grapple with the apparent absurdity and insignificance of their lives and the vastness of the cosmos. However,
is there an
nihilism isn't purely about despair.
Tier?
Some proponents
I feel like we throw any nihilism in F tier
by recognizing the absence of...
Granted, I do see how nihilism is... like I empathize with people who have fallen into that, given that perhaps people did have this expectation that everything that had to do with meaning and morality in the world and must have to do with some transcendent being or the universe at large. And now, when you lose that, you might think that there it is. But yeah, this is why it's so great to have the phenomenological view, where we're really all just grappling with consciousness. And within that space, we can create a lot of meaning and a lot of positive emotion. Nietzsche's great project was combating nihilism that people would fall into when Christianity's reign stopped, but he's awfully elitist. I imagine, though, that he planted the right seeds, and that has propagated throughout time and probably affected a lot of the philosophers that have now affected us, because it's been some time.
Inherent meaning, individuals are freed from the constraints of traditional values and beliefs. This liberation can inspire a more authentic mode of existence, where individuals create their own meaning and create their own values based on personal experiences and desires. Throughout history, nihilism has influenced literature, philosophy, and art. Thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche and Albert Camus have explored its implications, prompting deep reflections on the human condition. While nihilism can be unsettling, I personally think it fits certain people. If someone doesn't fully align with traditional moral beliefs, it could be a decent fit, I guess. Also, it allows complete control over what you believe without having to conform to any religion or other philosophy, so D tier.
Yeah, it doesn't actually allow you to do that, though. You know, it allows you to think that you're doing that, but it doesn't actually, like, your brain won't allow you to just choose meaning. Like, you don't have full control. What you end up doing is you start, like, leveraging that identity, and then yeah, once you get hit with, it actually sets you up for significant prediction error when expectations start failing, and you don't believe that expectations can fail. Then there you go, you're not in a good position. I think the thing that Jordan Peterson taught us, if he taught us anything, was that by expecting the unexpected, you can significantly diminish the negative severity of prediction error.
Absurdism. Absurdism is another philosophical viewpoint that delves into the meaning of existence, but it approaches the subject differently than nihilism. Absurdism, often associated with the work of the existentialist philosopher Albert Camus, acknowledges the apparent lack of inherent meaning in the universe, similar to nihilism. However, instead of resigning to despair or nihilistic conclusions, absurdism proposes embracing the inherent absurdity of the human condition. At the core of absurdism is the recognition of the absurd nature of existence, where humans constantly seek meaning and purpose in the universe that seems indifferent or rational. Despite this, absurdists advocate for a defiant and courageous response to this absurdity. They argue that individuals can find meaning and can find fulfillment by embracing life's uncertainties and contradictions, even in the face of an ultimately meaningless universe. Camus famously illustrated the absurd through his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus.
It's like, it's slightly it's slightly less than what we would like, because we would like the actual conceptualization to be that, what is going on here? That you actually create meaning, or that you can find meaning, rather than simply just acknowledge no meaning and then even find a way to be fine with that, right? Like, so the nice thing about absurdism is you still get to have a positive emotional life, but the fact that it doesn't conceptualize what you're doing by doing that as purposeful in itself, you know, it slightly misses the mark. But I would give this a good B. Yo, Energy Taunter, what's good? Being invaded by parakeets. Yeah, absolutely.
In his novel, The Stranger, in The Myth of Sisyphus, he likens human existence to the plight of Sisyphus, condemned to endlessly roll a boulder up a hill only to watch it roll back down, symbolizing the futility of our actions in the face of an indifferent cosmos. Despite this seemingly futile existence, Camus argues that Sisyphus can find meaning and defiance in his struggle. Also, in The Stranger, Camus explores the life of an ordinary man, Marissault, who faces life's absurdity with indifference and detachment. Through Marissault's experiences...
Have I seen all those parakeets in Australia? I have not. They just have a bunch of parakeets instead of pigeons or ducks or whatever. I don't even know what parakeets look like. Oh, okay, I guess I did know what a parakeet looked like. That's kind of wild.
Camus highlights the absurdity of human existence and the potential for individuals to find meaning through personal rebellion against societal norms and expectations. In summary, absurdism acknowledges the lack of inherent meaning in the universe, but proposes embracing life's absurdity as a
I have not read anything by Kafka. What's Kafka's shtick? What type of philosophy?
Of finding personal meaning and fulfillment compared to nihilism. It encourages individuals to confront the inherent contradictions of existence with courage and defiance, rather than succumbing to despair or nihilism. Absurdism is very interesting to me, and probably one of my favorite philosophies to learn and live by. So I may be a little bit biased, but I think it's good to be yourself and live by your own means and just do what you want, embrace all the struggles that come with life.
Okay, yeah, I guess the way that he's saying it, live by your own meanings. Yeah, it's still missing the mark, because it doesn't recognize that your meaning is still heavily tied to social norms. So you're never just living by your own meaning. So I still have to give this like a B. And if if there's an S, then I think we give it a B. If there's no S, then we give it a C. To my understanding, he's an existentialist. Okay, I thought we were only reacting to stuff related to the document. Yes, ish. Are you saying that the philosophy tier list is not related? Because I guess what we're trying to do is contrast, or at least what I'm trying to do is contrast. But that's being said, we are going to be watching the entire lore of Silksong. Feel free to just bounce if this is not interesting. But this video just came out, and I've been looking forward to it, so I'm probably going to end the stream. Put Platonism in #1. We'll see. We shall see. There's got to be more branches of philosophy than is included in this video, but...
And take every struggle as a learning lesson. So, S tier.
S tier, get out of here.
Utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is a moral and philosophical theory that suggests the best action is the one that maximizes overall happiness or well-being for the greatest number of people. It's the consequentialist approach, meaning it focuses on the outcomes or consequences of actions rather than inherent principles or rules. At the heart of utilitarianism is the idea of utility, which is typically understood as happiness, pleasure, or the absence of suffering. According to this theory, the morality of an action is determined by its ability to produce the greatest amount of utility for the greatest number of people. Utilitarianism can be...
So obviously the way that we always think of these things is like, it's not necessarily that is the moral decision, but that's a way that you can consider what you morally should do. Obviously, this philosophy was probably developed when people did think like there was a clear moral framework, and you know it has to do with utility, even though obviously the difficulty with utilitarianism is determining what the value should be and determining if how to determine what the outputs actually amount to. So
further divide.
That's why we can't give it S tier. But I think I'm going A, I think.
Divided into two main branches: act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism.
Didn't this guy comment on one of your videos? Oh yeah, this guy did. Yeah. He was he like thanked us for watching. Oh, what's your perspective regarding Platonism? I don't know Platonism well. This is just Plato's shtick. Can you briefly describe Platonism? Holds that abstract entities exist independently of the physical world and of human thought. Yeah, so we don't abide by this at all. This is not even close to what we try to point out in the document. And I don't think it's useful to think this way. So, 2 thumbs down.
Act utilitarianism evaluates.
How on earth did he find your video? I don't know. I was wondering that. Like, do you think that YouTube tells them when okay, so YouTube does tell you where viewers come from, but there's no way that we contributed enough enough activity for YouTube to tell them that. Maybe he got recommended like my stream, or like maybe someone else. Or he could have seen your like. Oh, do people do that? Can people see likes? I guess there's a chance that, but still, like, I imagine you look at your likes and then you probably like sort by how many subscribers they have, and we have 0, effectively. So I really have I couldn't figure that out. I have no idea how they found us. Unless unless YouTube has some system where if they see your full, info card here, they tell the viewer. 'Twas fate. Maybe it was fate. Maybe he's a lurker.
Evaluates each individual actions based on its specific consequences, choosing the action that leads to the greatest overall utility in a given situation. Rule utilitarianism, on the other hand, proposes that moral rules or principles should be followed based on their ability to produce the greatest overall utility when consistently applied. One of the key strengths of utilitarianism is its emphasis on promoting
when
the
does that become deontology? Rule utilitarianism. At what point does rule utilitarianism... where am I doing it? Just become deontology. Can I ask a philosophical question not related to the document? Absolutely. Let it rip. What's your perspective on Quine Putnam regarding argument I mean, I have no idea what that argument is. I mean, I guess I could run it. But yeah, mathematical Platonism. I'm probably going to think the same thing. I'm guessing mathematical Platonism is going to argue something akin to Platonism. Yeah, I think that mathematics is a developed set of norms that we found can easily represent things that we see, things we see empirically. Yes, I can. All right, let's first look at this. The core of rule utilitarianism holds that we should act according to the set of rules whose general acceptance would produce the greatest overall good. Like, is this not the categorical imperative at some sense? So instead of asking what action maximizes happiness right now, the rule asks what rule, if generally followed, would maximize happiness. The challenge is what to do when following the rule in a specific case. Okay, I understand. So, oh wait, did it say what deontology? No. So the point at which rule utilitarianism becomes deontology is when the justification for following the rule shifts from this rule maximizes happiness overall to this rule must be followed regardless of consequences. So it's like so close. Doesn't the categorical imperative kind of link the two? Philosophers like J.J.C. Smart argued that, and he's got it in his name, argued that strong rule utilitarianism just is deontology under another name, since it abandons the utilitarian principle when it forbids utility increasing violations. Okay. The categorical imperative does resemble rule utilitarian reasoning in structure, even though the two theories diverge radically in justification and moral psychology. Okay. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. That sounds a lot like rule utilitarianism's test. Follow the rule whose general adoption would maximize overall happiness. In both cases, the moral test is universalization. You don't look only at the individual act. You imagine everyone following the same rule or maxim and judge the morality of of your act accordingly. Okay, we could probably just leave this now. It's similar to the categorical imperative because both have a kind of Christian tone to them. Just for the Actually, I'm not. I'm curious why you say that, because I don't think it doesn't matter that it helps everyone. It's just the idea is if everyone were to do it. So I mean, I guess it's Christian in the sense that there's universal rules that everyone ought to follow, but I think this is more of like a theoretical, like thought experiment type thing, and perhaps the outcome is not necessarily a Christian outcome. Like it's not like a do good unto all good, or unto all people, or do unto your neighbor as you do as yourself or whatever. But yeah, I guess that universal laws maximize happiness and the good, don't diverge from it regardless of the consequences. Yeah. Yep, they do need to push a universal law, or else what are they even doing there? Okay, let's go. What do we have here? We can just leverage. What about the Putnam argument? It's one of the most influential modern defenses of mathematical Platonism, the view that mathematical entities exist independently of human thought. Yeah, so once again, the nuance here is that all meaning that we think about, we can think of in a similar way. And the way that the document kind of pushes is we could think about it as conceptual, and concepts are related to each other. They have properties, and you could think of that about these properties as relations themselves. So yeah, like the fact that this pen has black ink tells you that a pen can have black ink. Black ink is something that a pen can have, etc. These are just like logical relations. Just because something has black ink doesn't mean it's a pen, and it's all kinds of stuff like that. The point I'm trying to make, though, is we can say that our conceptual, like the concept of mathematics, or our conceptual understanding of mathematics, is such that it has the property of existing independently of human thought. Like it's as if, like, we know that about it, that these entities would exist independently of human thought. That's it. Obviously, the concepts themselves are experienced. Like the concepts don't exist without human thought, but what the concepts are of in this sense, and this isn't to say that they are of something external to consciousness, but it's more to say like this is the objective contents of the subjective experience itself. So we can't agree with mathematical Platonism. We can't agree with any type of Platonism because of that. Because this is trying to make the case that it exists externally in some transcendent sense, when really it feels that way. Like this is like aspects of our concepts are things that we feel, whether we reflect on them and we feel that these are I feel like this is a pen, or they feel a certain way when we operate as if these things are true. Like when I pick up a pen and I start writing, I could say that I'm operating as if the pen is a writing utensil, even though that's not something that actually comes to my mind. So that's why this whole idea that we have a conceptual understanding, or that we experience concepts, is like theoretical. Like we are conceptualizing what's happening, when really what's just happening is conscious experience. And only sometimes does conscious experience actually reveal to us explicit meaning, which is what we use to describe when we actually think about explicit words that make sense of explicit objects, like mathematical entities. So yeah, we can't abide by this. unfortunately. All right, let's continue.
Being of the majority in its practical approach to moral decision making. However, critics of utilitarianism argue that it could lead to ethical dilemmas and overlooks the rights and interests of minority groups or individuals. Overall, though, utilitarianism provides a decent framework for evaluating ethical choices based on their consequences and their impact on human happiness and well-being. It continues to be a prominent theory in moral philosophy and is often applied in various fields, including ethics, politics, and economics. Utilitarianism is really hard to judge because on one hand you have a fun, happy life because you're just trying to maximize happiness and the complete absence of any sort of hardships or suffering. So I think this philosophy is almost impossible to live by in a sense, because life isn't all flowers and rainbows. There's bound to be hardships no matter how hard you try to avoid them, so you'll always be striving for something.
That's not the direction I would go in, but
because let's face it, not everyone on the universe or on the face of the planet will be happy at all times. So this philosophy will never really be fulfilled because you'll always be striving for something you can't reach. So B tier.
Like, I think utilitarianism, it's less about you experiencing positive emotion for the entirety of your life. I don't know why Snook went in that direction. Because, yeah, if you focus on just yourself, then chances are you're going to end up not abiding by utilitarianism, where you could be focusing that energy onto actually maximizing utility in that sense. Rule utilitarianism, I think we have to drop down to like C or D tier. That just doesn't make much. Actually, you know what? Let me take that back. No, I disagree with what I just said. I think utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism together are pretty great. And you have to abide by both of those things because it's very difficult to actually apply like non-rule utilitarianism in every instance. I think the issue with utilitarianism is what is the utility, and yeah, how do you determine those rules? It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of ambiguity. So B is probably where I would put this anyway. You can't believe in the argument, but you haven't read the argument. I can't believe in the argument. I don't need to read the argument for me to not believe in it. Like, this is the stuff that I've been studying for the past year and a half, if not longer than that. We could try to see the argument, though. According to Plato, the physical world is only a shadow or imperfect copy of a higher, unchanging realm of forms, which are the true reality. Right? This is we've got like 3 red flags coming at us already. All circular objects in the physical world are imperfect copies of the form of a circle, which exists in a non-physical eternal. What's going on here? Exists in a non-physical eternal domain. Like intuitively, what does this even mean to you? Like, domains for us trigger thought processes that relate to space. Like, even when we talk about domains, like in like my domain of knowledge, right? Like, we still understand that stuff spatially. Like that's what like embodied cognitive scientists have come to discover. Like the idea of simulation, when you talk about let's go through this document, like what you're doing in your mind when you're thinking about these concepts is literally like simulating these space and movement concepts, these dependent circuits. So yeah, a non-physical eternal domain is rather ambiguous. It's unintuitive. Specifically, the argument regarding mathematical Platonism. All right. Where's the argument? Oh, that was, yeah. I'm sorry. This was. I'm sorry. I missed that we left. I should just mention, though, that mathematical Platonism is still grounded in Platonism. The indispensable argument proceeds. Indispensability argument proceeds roughly as follows. We ought to be ontologically committed to all entities that our best scientific theories quantify over. That we ought to be ontologically committed to all entities that our best scientific theories quantify over. Okay, what is ontologically committed going to mean? Because I think the standard of science shows that we ought to be, by default, uncertain, even about our best scientific theories. Granted, we can operate, as if our best theories are our best theories, right? Like we operate as if they are. I guess you could say true. It depends how founded they are. It's true, but this is going to make a case that like the shape of a circle is an entity that our best scientific theories quantify over. Actually, no, maybe circle was only up here, but this is going to, it's going to act as if like an equation is some ontological truth. This is Klein's principle of ontological commitment. If our best scientific theories say that something exists, in other words, we have to quantify over it to make the theory true, we should accept that it exists. What does it mean for something to exist? Mathematical entities are indispensable to our best scientific theories. Therefore, we ought to be ontologically committed to mathematical entities. Right, I would say the same thing about mathematical entities that I think about quarks, the concept of quarks themselves. Like one of the main things that we try to point out, though subtly in the beginning of the document, is we don't experience the physical world directly. My understanding of an atom is not an atom itself. We don't see atoms. I don't think atoms. These are abstractions that we experience conceptually. So similar to quarks, electrons, and numbers and sets and all that stuff, we have this understanding that these things do exist regardless of whether we perceive them or not, or whether we are around. But that said, like we are, like the concepts themselves manifest in our experience. The concepts don't manifest anywhere else. And the concept and like, yeah, the big idea that we get from contemporary neuroscience is that we don't simply perceive like the world in like a neutral way. Like we don't perceive, it's not like my brain just, takes in all of the stimuli that could or all of the we could say external stimuli. Stimuli though implies that we've already like sensed it, but it doesn't take everything from the external world. It's not like all the photons matter, right? Like, first of all, the fact that only certain waves of light actually get through our sensory mechanisms, get through our eyes, is a big deal. And then we similarly process that small subset of all the light stimuli that we possibly could process in ways that are highly affected by our context and memory and all that stuff. What I'm trying to get at is it's not like we perceive what's actually in the world, like physically. Yeah, I need to get a better description of or I need to make that argument a little bit better. But yeah, the point is that what we're experiencing is something that's, you know, already put in its abstract form. All right. Therefore, we ought to. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all we can do. I don't know, Energy Dunter, if that was satisfying enough, but it's the best I can do.
Objectivism. Objectivism, which is a philosophical system developed by writer and philosopher Ayn Rand, advocates for a belief in objective reality, reason, and individualism. At its core, objectivism holds that reality exists independent of human consciousness. It asserts that facts are facts, regardless.
What is going on here?
Reach system developed by writer and philosopher Ayn Rand, advocates for a belief in objective reality, reason, and individualism. At its core, objectivism holds that reality exists independent of human consciousness.
All right, this is going straight to the D tier, or the F tier. I have heard of Rand before, but only, I think from, I mean, I've only just heard the name. I didn't know, I knew the name was kind of controversial, but I've never really actually considered what Rand said. And then I think it's come up in this chat a few times. Rand is what Karl Marx would have been if he was a capitalist. Wow. Was this Rand's like most... this can't be Rand's like controversial opinion, right? Objectivism?
It asserts that facts are facts, regardless of an individual's beliefs or wishes. In other words, reality is what it is, and our perceptions must conform to it. Objectivism emphasizes the importance of reason as the primary means of...
So this has been demolished by scientific findings within the past at least 10, 20 years, if not more.
Understanding reality and making decisions. Rational thinking, logic, and evidence are seen as essential tools for achieving knowledge
have you played
and guiding human
BioShock?
action.
It's inspired by her philosophy.
Another key principle of objectivism is the promotion of rational self-interest as a moral virtue. It argues that individuals have the right to pursue their own happiness and well-being, and that self-interest is not inherently selfish or immoral, but rather a natural expression of human nature. Objectivism also upholds the sovereignty of the individual and rejects collectivism. It emphasizes the importance of individual rights, including the rights to life, liberty, and property, and advocates for a society based on voluntary cooperation and free exchange. Moreover, objectivism advocates for a laissez-faire capitalism.
All right, I'm skipping ahead. This one's so far down into the F tier that we can't even... Oh my gosh, you gave it the A tier? What's going on here? Perhaps, how long is it? Ayn Rand is what you believe in when you start as an intern at Wall Street. Nice. I mean, it feels good. Like, if we were to have a feels good tier list, then still D... S tier, perhaps S tier. This is tough, so maybe this is like a C tier. Like, it's very hard to be a utilitarian, and like being a true utilitarian, I think is very selfless, and it's going to require you to put, like, if you truly value like a certain virtue, let's just say happiness or something. And you value that absolutely, then you have to consider that you are one out of how many people live on this planet, and that one out of whatever is how much it matters that you get something, that you get the happiness. So you would rather do something for 5 people rather than yourself, because you're only one out of this many, and that's 5 out of this many. All right.
You waited all year.
You waited all year for some turkey.
Can we be served?
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Well, we'll do that one right after this.
A tier.
Who would win, Marxist university student or objectivist Wall Street intern? It depends what you mean by win.
Determinism. Determinism is a philosophical concept.
The answer is we all lose by having to watch that.
Suggesting
determinism. Oh my gosh.
Determinism. Determinism.
So I think determinism, once it cuts to philosophy, is not what we care for either.
Is a philosophical concept suggesting that all events, including human actions, are ultimately determined by causes external to the will. It proposes that every event, decision, and action unfolds according to a chain of
Depends what you mean by the will.
cause and effect relationships dictated by preceding causes and conditions governed by natural laws. This perspective challenges the notion of free will, implying that the future is already predetermined by the past in the present state of the universe. In determinism, human autonomy is questioned, as our actions are seen as an inevitable outcome of prior circumstances and factors beyond our control. There are various forms of determinism, each emphasizing different factors that influence human behavior and events. Causal determinism asserts that every event is necessitated by preceding events and natural laws, while biological determinism argues that human behavior is determined by biological factors like genetics and neurochemistry. Psychological determinism posits that human actions are determined by psychological factors such as unconscious drives or conditioning. And environmental determinism suggests that human behavior is shaped by external factors such as culture, society, and the environment we live in. Determinism has profound implications for philosophy, touching on areas such as ethics, metaphysics, and the philosophy of the mind. It raises questions about moral responsibility and the possibility of genuine human agency within a deterministic framework. Despite the challenges it poses to traditional notions of freedom, some philosophers advocate for compatibilism, which argues that determinism and free will are actually
compatible. So, yeah, the way to think about this, just be them shouting all over the place. Have you heard of the filmmaker Oliver Stone? To my understanding, he believes that Ayn Rand influenced some people on Wall Street. Interesting. I think that's a given, since she loved laissez-faire capitalism. Was Sigmund Freud a determinist? That's a good question. Determinists, when I publish a paper proving how they need to listen to me. Have I heard of Sigmund Freud? I've heard of Freud. I haven't heard of Stone. Actually, I think I have heard of Stone. It's the science. All right, so the way to think about this is when you think about like the physical world, this is the case, right? You know, it's like all physical processes are deterministic. That includes our brain, etc. But when we think about our understanding of our own actions, then we don't have to like add that in or lump that in with like the fact that we understand that the physical world is deterministic. Like, because our actions are experienced through our understanding, through our experience, and we aren't privy to how determinism actually operates because we don't know all the matter and energy in the universe, then we get to act as if we do have freedom, right? And this freedom isn't complete freedom, as we point out in the document. This freedom must be constrained by the physical laws, which are deterministic. So, you know, no matter how much I want to walk through that wall, I can't walk through that wall, that's for sure. And then also we know that, you know, these deterministic processes affect how we understand the world. So no matter how much I want to think that this is not a pen, I can't. We know that physically there's no way that we could get to a point where I actually have the experience of thinking that, unless, you know, I go through conditioning that takes a long time and would probably be really weird. I don't know how I would do that, but yeah, like we can behave as if, and it's not like we're behaving in a lie. Like we are, you know, we're operating in our conscious space in such a way where we can think about possibilities that haven't come to fruition yet, and we can try to do things. So yeah, but you have to try to do it if you want it to actually kind of happen. I don't want any determinists complaining about the government. For real. Does quantum physics not demonstrate that physics isn't deterministic? It depends. So this goes back to our quantum consciousness discussion. No. Right? Was that part of that discussion? So it depends which branch of quantum physics you follow. Do I still have the script for that thing? Did we make a script? What happened there? Videos, quantum... Oh, we don't have a script. Why do I feel like there was a script? Huh. I'm confused. I guess we have our... was that just things I said? Or was that things that came up in that... I don't know. So, yeah, in that video, we went through a few different interpretations of quantum physics. And there was a trade-off with each one of them. Like some explain spooky action at a distance, but didn't explain determinism. Maybe that was it. One of them couldn't explain spooky action at a distance, but could explain. I don't know. The interpretation of quantum physics that is still deterministic is the many worlds hypothesis, which points out that the superposition of the universe, so this is the wave function that describes the probability that every single electron could be in you know one or the other state going into the future, or when it splits, you could say. That it's deterministic in the sense that, you know, whenever an electron splits, you think that the two worlds come from that deterministically. So many worlds involves like a deterministic trajectory going forward that involves a bunch of splits where we now have like an insane amount of worlds happening at the same time, whatever that means. But potentially not an infinite amount of worlds, because there's not an infinite amount of electrons in the universe. So there wouldn't be a world where I just jump through a wall like they always say. But that would be deterministic. Like the only thing that it... what was the thing that it... It explains spooky action at a distance. The only thing wrong about many... And it explains determinism. The only thing wrong about many worlds is that it's got this weird concept of many worlds. So that's like the weird part of it. But yeah, in contrast to that interpretation, there's the interpretation of... I guess the wave function collapse. So like when something's observed, like literally the wave function collapses into a single one, and now you start getting spooky action at a distance, and you start getting no determinism, maybe, or maybe you can't. I don't know. I don't remember. We'd have to go back to that video. That video was pretty great, I thought, but I think it was just me going through a ChatGPT conversation during stream. But yeah, if that answers your question, there like the interpretation I subscribe to is the one that involves determinism, because in my mind that makes more sense than the other interpretations, even though it involves many worlds. But the fact that we don't understand the like other dimensions of the universe, in my mind, means that like many worlds doesn't seem too far-fetched there. But the lack of determinism does seem pretty far-fetched. Just knowing what we know about the universe. Granted, either one could be possible, given that we don't know everything about the universe. To my understanding, Wigner and von Neumann believe that the quantum wave function collapses when humans perceive the quantum state. Yeah, that was that's their interpretation. Yeah, that was one of the competing interpretations. The quantum wave cowers at the free will wielding bipedal animal. Also, happy Halloween. I do celebrate it in the sense that I go to Halloween parties, but I don't currently give out candy or have a kid, so I haven't celebrated like the Halloween night type thing in a while. But yeah, Halloween's pretty cool. I don't think it's one of my favorite. I mean, you know, I love all holidays, but it's not like in my top 3, I would say. Like, I'm a big fan of the 2 coming up, I guess, for us normie Catholic Americans. So Thanksgiving and Christmas is my favorite. But yeah, Halloween's cool stuff.
Compatible, allowing for a meaningful sense of freedom and responsibility within the constraints of deterministic forces. Determinism remains a subject of ongoing debate and exploration, as it prompts deep reflections on the nature of reality.
Oh, don't Protestants celebrate Thanksgiving? Yeah, I imagine multiple people celebrate Thanksgiving. Yeah, I just don't know that space.
Human nature and the limits of human knowledge. Determinism is another unique main.
Wait a second, what's going on here? This is most certainly an AI image. Oh, but this came out in 2024, so maybe this video probably came out prior to when YouTube requires you tell it that you have augmented content in it. Because this is like classic AI. This is like Stable Diffusion. Like, what is going on there? What is this?
Nature of reality, human nature, and the limits of human knowledge. Determinism is another unique mainstream philosophy. It is hard to agree with, though, because free will
on
is
the theological grind
to almost every philosophy and religion worldwide that says humans do have free will, and having people's lives predetermined is hard to prove, but also hard to disprove. So who really knows? But I don't think that this philosophy has a lot of, evidence, I guess. So I'll go with C tier.
What is going on here?
A lot of, who really knows? But hard to prove, as humans do have free will. According to almost every it's hard to agree with, though, because
what's happening?
Knowledge. Determinism is another unique mainstream philosophy. It is hard to agree with, though, because free will is true and real according to almost every philosophy and religion worldwide. That.
What did I just hear? Determinism is hard to agree with because other philosophies are don't believe in determinism.
Says humans do have free will, and having people's lives predetermined is hard to prove, but
this is like one of the most easy things to prove. If there was anything that was like easy to prove, it would be determinism, except for the quantum discussion. Now, like if you stipulate your anti-determinism on the quantum discussion, then you have like a fair point of contention. That said, once again, it's actually it doesn't become a fair point because, as we discovered in that same video, the relevance of any type of indeterminism that might come from quantum physics does not actually affect the determinism of the human brain and body. Like it wouldn't make an effect on whether or not your choices were predetermined. So yeah, this is I'm going to say this is a weak argument.
also hard to disprove. So who really knows? But I don't think that this philosophy has a lot of, evidence, I guess. So I'll go with C tier. Empiricism.
I think of all these philosophies, that's the one that has the most evidence because it's grounded in physical science and the physical world. Can you ask ChatGPT, what is Kant's argument that free will is unknowable either way? Okay. Arises from the core structure of his critique of pure reason, especially his distinction between phenomena and noumena. Okay, so remember, Kant is still stuck in this idea that noumena there's a gap between the phenomena and the noumena. So like the thing that Hegel gets, that Brandom takes from Hegel, which I took from Brandom, is that we have subjective phenomena of noumena, but that's the noumena is part of the subjective experience, right? Like it's this is why I always say we have a subjective experience of an objective world. But when I say of an objective world, I don't mean the objective world's external. I mean that like the thing that appears in our subjective experience is an objective world. It feels objective. Like that's its, you could say that's its form. So Kant's going to still be stuck in this type of framework. And that's probably, let's see if that actually is the undoing here. Freedom versus determinism and the limits of knowledge. Kant recognized a fundamental conflict. On one hand, empirical science shows that every event in the physical world has a cause. This is the determinism of nature. On the other hand, moral responsibility seems to require freedom. So yeah, this is moral responsibility exists in the space of consciousness. In the sense that like we have conceptual experiences about what we ought to do and what is moral and what not. Granted, we have conceptual experiences about what is empirical and what the physical world is, but the laws of like the physical world, such that it's deterministic, are like properties of our conceptual understanding of the physical world. So it's like the deterministic nature of the physical world is like constitutive of our, like it's a property of our conceptual experience and understanding of the physical world. And when I say of the physical world, I mean of the concept of the physical world, not of the actual physical world. So yeah, that's how we get into a difficulty here. Because if you believe that, moral responsibility seems to require freedom, like the problem Kant's going to have here is Kant's going to be like, oh, but that like moral responsibility being some type of objective thing, and the physical world's objective, and freedom is required for that, and so therefore freedom is now in this like objective realm, not in the subjective realm, as if there's a gap between the two. How does this happen when yeah, our sense of freedom is also similarly experienced? So we can have this experience or understanding of freedom that pertains to our moral responsibility. And that's fine. That's the compatibilism that we look for in the document. Like we literally leverage our concept of our own freedom. Like we know that it's afforded by our physical makeup. We talk all the way through what not only affects our ability to think about our sense of freedom in the moment, but how we can make sense of how we like what actually contributes to this thing, nature and nurture, etc. We can only be held morally responsible for actions that are freely chosen. Yeah, so when we consider our moral responsibility, yeah, like we get to similarly leverage our conceptual understanding of moral responsibility. That's what we're gonna do in part 3. It's gonna be, hey, like currently right now you understand what morality means, and therefore you're now allowed to use that conceptual understanding. You could reflect on it. You can ask it questions. What should I be doing? and that's what you're up against. Now, this whole thing that we just did might, it's on the zoomed out lens of the physical world. This was all predetermined in some sense. Predetermined wouldn't be apt, but this was all deterministic. It's not like someone or something predetermined it, unless you think that the Big Bang, already knew the entire trajectory of the physical world until it dissipates again. So phenomena, what can we know? Yeah, and then the nomina, what we cannot know. Yeah, so we're because we're stuck in this nomina being something we can't know, and there's a gap between phenomena and nomina. We're just going to be stuck at this. Like, this is like a conceptual semantic issue. When we ought not need to hold ourselves to this type of setup. Freedom is thinkable, not knowable. We can never know that we are free, but we also cannot deny freedom. So I argue in the document that you can convince yourself that you are free when you feel like you've done the requisite actions to be free, right? So like we consider what it would mean for us to be free in at the end of part 1 of the document. What does it require? And we point out that it requires that you reflect on your freedom, what you can do, and reflect on the thing you want to do, like the intention. And then it also requires recurrent reflections to consider whether you are doing the thing that needs to be done in order to reach that thing, and whether you're noticing when, the very parameters of what that goal is changes. So you earn your freedom over time. It's not something that you just, because I can in the moment think that I can do something, that means I'm free. Like, I now have to convince myself that I do the things that are necessary for me to feel like I just did the thing intentionally. And that's the power of what we're able to achieve at the end of part 1. Like, what we earned that, the ability to think about freedom in that way, through our grounded build up. I don't know if any of that made was clear or made sense, but yeah, I just like going on these monologue tirades. We might need to cut out a video. We might not be able to do the lore of Silksong tonight. I think we should cut that one. We'll do that another time. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow or the next day. And then, yeah. Oh, and the other thing is I have to push back the filming of this next video. I literally spent all day today learning about the brain and getting closer to getting that script ready, but there was just a lot of stuff, and there's still a little bit more that I want to add into it, but it's gonna be another banger video. I'll tell you that. It's gonna have a lot of cool stuff in it. Hopefully it'll appease the anti-physicalists, but we'll see. All right. Yeah, let's continue.
Empiricism, which is a philosophical stance, highlights sensory experience and observation as the primary sources of knowledge about the world.
Empiricism.
In constraint to rationalism, which we'll cover next, which prioritizes reason and innate ideas, empiricism asserts that all knowledge ultimately stems from sensory perception and experience. Key principles of empiricism include sense perception, wherein knowledge is derived from direct sensory experiences like seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling.
Yeah, if we're gonna take the true based empiricist view, it's that all knowledge comes from the one sense of consciousness, and we obviously we can understand that we have these senses like as part of our broader physiology, but that's not like. Once again, if there's like a filtering between what we, the stimuli that hits our sensory organs and what reaches our conscious experience, it's after the senses. So we have to only consider the thing that actually reaches our conscious awareness as what is, what constitutes like empirical phenomena.
Tasting and smelling. Empiricists argue that experience serves as the foundation
All
for.
right, I might actually just be over this video. I don't know if is anyone not okay with skipping ahead. I'm just curious. What do we got here? Is this stoicism? This has to be stoicism, right?
And just focus on becoming the best you can put life. And I don't think I have much to say here other than S tier, because I think.
Okay, we got rationalism there, existentialism, empiricism. Okay. All right, let's watch this one.
Certain that
What makes definitions correct? Whoa.
can we be certain that a definition is complete and full? What happens when we acquire, for example, new knowledge for something? This does change the definition of a concept, and yeah.
Yeah, great question. So how can you be certain that you've got the right definition of something? Definitions are difficult because definitions are really the final step in the process of concept formation. So the earlier steps in concept formation consists mostly in asking questions like, what is this thing? How does it relate to other things? What differentiates it from other things? Do we need to make any kind of a concept for this? We can work with justice because it's already on the table. We see that we need to judge people. We don't have a definition of justice right off the bat. They don't come from on high, right? We've got to develop them. But they get developed by observing and integrating based on our needs. So we take justice. We need to judge people, clearly. Got to do that. We need to judge them in light of the fact that they have volition. We need to judge them on the basis of facts, not just, what we feel or what we wish or what we hope or on some other non-relevant factor. So we've got to judge them on the basis of facts. And then once we judge them, we need to treat them accordingly. If you judge somebody as evil but treat him as good, it's going to mess your life up. If you judge someone as good but treat him poorly, that's going to mess your life up. So you need to judge people correctly and then treat them accordingly. And then after you do the work to figure out what are the facts that give rise to the need of justice, then you can say, okay, now how do we essentialize that thought process? Then you can come up with a definition of justice, which would be something like, justice is the virtue of judging people according to the facts and treating them accordingly as they deserve to be treated.
Yeah, the nice thing, I guess the nice parallel to draw is, Jordan Peterson's talked about how we first observe and then we put words to what we've observed. And that comes from I don't know, Piaget or something like that. But yeah, what we end up with is like a set. It's we can think about it as norms. Like we come up with a rule. Like this is the definition of justice. Like this is how we ought to think about justice. And we could think that it's not like we're just creating the rule out of thin air. Like there were rules that made us pick this definition. Like like in our view, when we create this definition, we had to make the definition this way because this definition matches what we think about what these words mean and what this string of text would mean. So yeah, when things change, then you are obligated, or at least you would feel obligated, to change the definition to match what you think is now true. Would you say you agree with the objectivist theory of concept formation? Is this an objectivist? Yes. So the only thing that was a little odd was like when he talked about making this in alignment with your needs, or like figuring out this stuff in your justice is when Andrew Yang sends me $2,000 a month. True. Let's get that big bag. Yeah, I take a more pragmatic approach. Like, we can consider what actually leads to us having this feeling that this is the necessary formation of the definition that makes sense of what we believe. But it's not like we intentionally choose this direction. So it's not like it's always according to our needs, or it's not like we intentionally, it's not like we're intentionally like, deciding this trajectory. So yeah, I don't know if I like paid attention close enough to know if I would say that I aptly say that I agree with the objectivist theory of constant formation, but I do agree with the overall sense that this is like an emergent thing that comes out of activity and people's experiences and people's negotiations of what these things mean, etc. And then you try to put words to what you feel. And chances are at this point, everyone feels a similar way about justice. So this is that idea that, because everyone is socially in tuned, let's just say, such that if someone were to act out of tune of the rules of what justice conceptually is, then it would be a problem for that person. So everyone kind of aligns at a pragmatically similar understanding of what justice would be, and like they're acting it out in such a way. And then when they put the definition, like when they actually make a definition, everyone's going to infer pragmatically similar things from that definition. And it's almost at the point where, if someone had to come up with a definition, they're probably going to assume that, that other people would understand justice in the way that they do. Connecting to chat. Welcome to the chat room. Okay. That they would understand justice, that other people would understand justice in the way that they do. So they want to make the definition that aligns with what they believe to be the norms of what justice requires, or like what it means, right? We can think about just like how we talk in the document, we could think about this semantically, like what justice is. This is like, acting as if it is some objective thing. And then you could also think about it normatively, like you could act as if there's rules around how it ought to be described. So,
or something to that effect. And that's where the definition comes from. Now, definitions are contextual, and you frequently have to form definitions at a certain point so that you can use the idea and know what you're thinking or talking about before you have complete information on something. So definitions can change over time, and they often do.
Yep.
As your thinking becomes more refined. So you don't need the Platonic form of the proper definition in order to think and use ideas.
The idea would be that there is no Platonic form of the definition, that there is just this, for Hegel, there's just the spirit, right? You could think about the definition as the process. This is why in the end of our part 1, we say that like literally we cannot just like leave this document as is. Like this. Yeah, the beauty of this framework is that it explicitly justifies itself by self-consciously acknowledging its own contingencies and consequently accepting responsibility for them. And then the responsibility is aimed to continually realign our understanding towards the standards and criteria we have set for. Okay, no, this is not the same thing. We must be open to dialogue and engagement, open for updates and improvements as we closely analyze the framework's effectiveness, as we come up with new and arguably better ways of explaining things, as our broader collective knowledge evolves, and ultimately as our understandings shift in tandem with our culture. This makes each of us an active, responsible participant for ensuring the effectiveness and reliability of the framework. Crazy stuff. Yeah, this is the very end of the part one. So yeah, would you be interested in the conceptual parallels between Hegelian philosophy and theology? Oh, I don't know. I doubt it, honestly. I'm sorry. I'm not to be overly dismissive. Because already Hegel, I think, is a little dramatic about the stuff he talks about, and then I could see this getting off the rails when we're trying to, find parallels between theology and Hegelian philosophy. But I think I think the cool thing to point out is that Hegelian philosophy, I think, is quite in tune with phenomenology. Like, I think he arrived there out of like a pretty apt intuition that's obviously affected by like a developing philosophical culture. And I'd imagine that religions similarly develop these like very intuitive, quote unquote, truths, to be Petersonian.
If it take, just because it's also on the table, take the concept of tariff, right? So you can read about tariffs in a book on
okay. How did you find this? This has 148 views.
economics, where you can get some, very high level understandings of the history of this method of government taking money in the form of essentially taxation through imports, and it's an indirect tax on the citizens and all of that. Or if you're trying to explain this to a group of high school students or something, you can make it a lot easier and say, look, if you've got a lemonade stand and you want to sell your lemonade to this person over here, but I come in.
Oh, nice.
As the government, and I say, well, you can't move your lemonade this way unless you give me some money, and then what's going to happen to the price of lemonade if it goes into a secondary market? Like, you can put it in simpler terms, right? So then the way in which I might define tariff.
All right, I'm cutting it. Yeah, so first of all is this idea of spirit arising in multiple places, and I think this kind of involves the Holy Spirit in Catholicism. Though I would want to double check that. I feel like the Holy Spirit maybe has a different connotation. But yeah, the idea of the infinite especially is right in line with Hegel. I mean, this is the same idea that like the definition is never going to be done. That's why there can't be a Platonic, or not why, but that's like another logical, reason, quote unquote, why it is like a logical deductive argument. I think it's deductive. If the current definition is always contingent and subject to change, therefore there cannot be a absolute Platonic definition. And this goes into infinity, so that might be inductive. I don't know. Would you rather be a high-ranking judge or a philosophy professor at an Ivy League institution? I would rather be the one that requires the least amount of work so that I can continue this stuff. But I can answer the question in different ways, where I think I would have a significantly more outcome. Like if I was a Supreme Court judge, then I have significant power. Significant power. I could affect good in so many ways. And if I was a philosophy professor at an Ivy League institution, then I'm probably just teaching like a few kids at a time. I would rather be doing what I'm doing now than be a philosophy professor at an Ivy League institution, because I think that the ceiling is higher. Granted, if I was already a philosophy professor at an Ivy League and then I started doing what I was doing now, I'd probably have a better pull. I would be putting that on the beginning of all my videos, but I'm just a random computer science guy. You could give me a few government contracts. It's called lobbying. True. Absolutely. But yeah, if I could just magically be a high-ranking judge, I think I would do that for the sake of what I think are moral requirements. It would depend on who I replace, but we don't have to get into that. God is dynamic process. Yep. This should also be Catholicism, at least in the way that I think I understand it. It's not frozen, but a living dynamism. Hegel. Did Hegel talk about God? Hegel talked about a lot of stuff, so I wouldn't doubt it. Alienation and return. The absolute others itself in nature and finite mind. Oh, if we had Darmadon, we could talk about this type of speak as well through spirituality. Creation involves divine self-withdrawal, leading to shattering, fragmentation of vessels, and the need for restoration. Anthropological and theological unity. Humanity is a microcosm of the divine structure. Yeah, I think a lot of these ideas are pretty standard. A high-ranking judge writing a philosophy document would gain more traction than the philosophy professor. Oh yeah, true. If I was the judge while doing this, but I would probably get a lot of flack if I was a high-ranking judge doing this. People would be like, "What, shouldn't you be doing work?" Like I'd essentially have to be phoning it in at that point. All right. Should we call it there? You know what we should do? We should figure out, are there... What causes consciousness? I'm just curious. We don't have to watch these videos. I'm just curious. 13 years ago, we got, yo, Vsauce is the best. Filters last year. Weird things begin to happen when you examine consciousness. Okay. Are atoms conscious? I can answer that question right now. Oh, but this is Annika Harris. Oh my gosh. She's going to say yes. The hard problem of consciousness. When was this? 11 months ago? Oh, should I watch this? Would this be useful? Maybe. I didn't realize David Chalmers was like around. I don't know if that's... Oh my gosh, he's just like around, yeah. The hard problem guy himself. Is a missing piece in physics. Yeah, we gotta figure this one out. Oh, Philosophy Beyond. This has to, okay, we've got an AI generated girl. We've got a pretty boilerplate. Do we have AI generated voice?
World in such a rich and personal way. This problem is different from what some call the easy problem.
Oh, this isn't even going to go into it. Come on. Come on. Oh, this is going to be good stuff. I could already tell. The mind body solution. Wow. Can we raid Willow again? I did like Willow's vibes, though. I feel like we should only raid when we have like a good amount of people in here. I feel weird just like raiding with a few. Challenging Sam Harris's wife on consciousness. Oh my, that would be so disrespectful and honestly demeaning. So unfortunately, we can't be doing that for clout. Also, I don't think. I mean, yeah, that's how you would have to do the name or the title that way. Anything for clicks, man. Now we got to have a good reputation in this game. We can't be causing a stir. I just can't believe, is no one talking about consciousness right now? This is crazy. All right, isn't who you think the observer behind your eyes isn't who you think it is. This has got to be good. The depths of my consciousness. How the brain produces consciousness. This is what we're looking for. 177 views. New consciousness science. How do you only get 177 views with this type of topic? Quantum consciousness theory. Let's get out of there. Where does your consciousness go during sleep? What? Where does it go? A lot of shorts. Out of curiosity, have you watched episode of the TV show Frasier? I have not. I watched episodes of Frasier recently. I joined episodes of the TV show Frasier. I don't even know what that show is. What's it about? Yeah, honestly, I've been out of the TV game for a while, which is kind of a bummer because I feel like I'm behind on a lot of new and popular shows. The number one reason demons target people. What is happening here? What has happened in our feed? Most dangerous sign in a person. Okay, so I think we've left consciousness space. Nope. 10 things about consciousness that don't make sense. And it's an hour and 20 minutes long. Is this AI?
You're still here, still holding on to the fragile thread.
Yeah, that's got to be AI. But it's 106K views. Okay. Sleepless nights? Get out of here. Quantum information panpsychism explained. Oh man, Huberman's still ripping these? Documentary. Yo, what? Okay. Don't mind if I do. Maybe we should just have a consciousness day tomorrow. or Sunday. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish the transcript or the script by tomorrow. What is happening? Revealed the true spiritual power of fasting for your soul. Okay. Wait a second, what happened? Was this not the same thing I just saw? Maybe it was. Exposing the illusion we live in. I think Castrup's gonna haunt us. That's gotta be AI. How is that real? To my understanding, the TV show Frasier is about a psychiatrist named Frasier Crane and his brother named Niles Crane. Okay. Oh, this is what we want. This is good stuff. Thermodynamic view. And it's like low views. That's what we're really looking for. I should have just made it low views. All right, I think we've exhausted this, which is crazy because this is just the last year. A little upsetting that the video didn't come up, the Stan video. If you enjoyed the TV show Seinfeld, you might also enjoy Frasier. Oh, cool. I found a new Kiwi video. Yo, let it rip. Let's end on a Kiwi video. Here we go. Yes.
You run over my cars.
Yeah, mostly that. She looks just like the t-shirts and stuff they have at the...
It's just like are all the videos of Kiwis just like, it looks like found footage? Like there's, like it's so hard to find them.
You run over my cars.
Yeah, mostly that.
It's like hand in your pockets, but also terrible posture where you're like running head first. Oh, I think this might be a zoo. Man, is there a zoo? Here we go. This is the real question. Is there a zoo that contains both penguins and kiwis? This is where we're heading. This is the channel field trip. Is the Wildlife Conservation Society's Bronx Zoo in New York City. Wow. Also called Little Blue Penguins. All right, let's see if this will suffice. That will suffice. That's pretty cool. That is great. Very nice. All right, that would work. That would work for me. They also mention a shy kiwi in the same aquatic birdhouse. Yes, yes. Oh. The Bronx? I thought they'd say someplace in Oceania. What? How do you say this? Oceania? Oceania? Oh yeah, we're searching it all. give us all the kiwis. There's a lot of things to search. We're going to New Zealand? Oh, the San Diego Zoo might not have a kiwi. All right, we got Ohio, Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. Nice. San Francisco, California. Here we go. Auckland, New Zealand. New Zealand, New Zealand. Germany. Germany. Kiwi are tightly managed and rare outside New Zealand. Holdings change. Save the Kiwi maintains lists of places to see kiwi, which is a good cross-check. Where to see? Shop for kiwi. This is kind of nice. A beeswax wrap. Is it just that? Give the gift of a kiwi. Oh. I thought we were giving a kiwi to someone. I like to imagine all the kiwis have a list of kiwi places that they all just have esoteric knowledge of. That would be pretty sweet. Oh. You know that the sound this thing is making is pretty ugly. Beautiful. Limited edition print, only $280. Yikes. I guess it's a nice frame, but yeah, it is limited edition. You couldn't make one of those yourself. What a deal. All right, I think I'm going to call it there. I will probably be on sometime during the day. What is my perspective on aliens? Oh, you missed us yesterday. We watched a video on aliens. Granted, we were looking for logical consistencies between the alien argument and panpsychism, but it still talked about aliens. Yeah, I think the takeaway though is our perspective kind of has to be we don't know. That our perspective also has to be that it's possible aliens are out there. I would speculate and say that it's unlikely that aliens have like come here and are here, and that the technology that we keep seeing is aliens. But I don't know. I'd imagine we would find life elsewhere before we find aliens, like intelligent species elsewhere. And I guess, I don't know if like life on Mars matter or counts, but all right, let's call it there. Thanks all for chilling out on this happy Halloween. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. See you later. Yeah, have a